Hello and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel, and this is the ratings show after United have beaten Wolverhampton Wanderers 1-0 at Old Trafford with an injury time goal at 93rd minute of the game. Marcus Rashford scored the only goal of the game. Massively important win. I've been saying for a few weeks now that I'd absolutely love to be going to Anfield in the situation that we've now been in for a few games, where we are 5 points behind the leaders with a game in hand. Obviously, with that game in hand to spare, so to speak, we could end up being 2 points behind them. As I speak right now, we actually are 2 points behind. The game in hand is missing for the moment because Liverpool have yet to play. Liverpool have got to play Newcastle away. You always say you don't know, but I do expect them to pick up the 3 points there. It'd be great for us if they didn't, of course. But we've now got another game against Aston Villa. The games are coming thick and fast. We've got a game against Villa on Friday night. You've just got to keep your own house in order, and what happens elsewhere happens elsewhere. If we can just tick the games off one by one and stay in touch, you never know where it could take you. So if we can beat Villa on Friday night, which will be no easy task. Villa are right up there as well. They're playing absolutely brilliantly themselves. He's doing a wonderful job there. And I think it's going to be a tough game, but we can win it. And if we win against Villa, the worst case scenario would be that we will be playing Liverpool at Anfield in our next league game, where the worst case scenario we would be 5 points behind them with a game in hand on them. Obviously, it could even be better than that if they drop any points between now and then. They've got 2 games before we play them, and we've just got the 1 now against Villa. So, as I say, massively important 3 points. We got the points. I was about to say we made hard work of it. You wouldn't expect anything different because we've drawn them in the cup 2 years running. We've now played them 8 times in 3 years. One of the cup times went to a replay. We've only beaten them twice in 8 games, Wolves. And we've never scored more. In 8 games, we haven't scored more than once against them in a single game, which is amazing, really. It really is. So it's a tough opponent for us. And although they had a few players missing, which they did have a few missing, it was, sterling performance by them. He's done a great job there, the Wolves manager. And I think just getting the 3, however we got there, just getting the 3 points was vital, and dead pleased with it. So, we are in the hunt. There's no point looking at it and saying, how can United challenge for the title when the situation's been like it has been for the last couple of seasons with Liverpool and City getting over 90 points. I think City got 100 points one season, didn't they? It doesn't look like either of those teams are going to get 90 odd points this season. It really doesn't. Obviously, they could suddenly just win 15, 16, 17 games in a row. The situation could change. If that was to happen, if I'm honest, we probably wouldn't keep up with them. But the way it's looking at the minute, it's going to be something like a normal season, I think, where something like 85 points might win the league. And I think we can get 85 points. You've got to start thinking that the longer we can just stay in it, you just never know where it can take you. So every game that comes along, take them one game at a time, or that's how the players and the staff have got to think about it. They've got to take it one game at a time. The next game's Aston Villa, win that one. We can't be in any worse a position then. Come the next game, the game after that. So we just tick them off one at a time. So we've got to beat Villa on Friday night. Last night was a must-win game. It took us till the 93rd minute. We didn't have many chances at all, by the way. But it took us till the 93rd minute to score, but we did get there in the end and we got the points. So, as I say, it's the rating show. It's a Daily Express that I've used, and I have got the ratings in front of me. The Express have given David De Gea a 7. They've said he made a fine save from Roman Saiss in the first half, denying him again with a quick reaction save in the second half, although the Wolves man was offside on this occasion. I don't know why they bother mentioning it if it was offside. But I thought David De Gea did have a decent game last night. There was 2 or 3 decent saves to be made. And also, as I always say, you can't really expect much more from a keeper than to keep a clean sheet, so there's no point whatsoever in marking him down if he's kept a clean sheet. We don't keep many clean sheets, by the way. So or we haven't been doing this season. So I think a 7's good for me. So I think a 7 for David De Gea, perfectly fair. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the Express, have given him a 6. They've said he was a passenger for much of the game, didn't get forward enough as United looked for a breakthrough. I agree with the 6 out of 10, but I don't agree with a single word that they've written. A passenger for much of the game, I just don't really understand what they mean by that. He's a full-back, he's got defending to do, he's got to stay in line, he's got to be in position, and then he can only get forward when he can get forward. He didn't get forward with any great purpose. There was nothing at the end of it, but he did get forward. They've said he didn't get forward enough. He got forward as often as he could. It's just that there was no decent end result in him getting forward. So I don't agree with a word they've said about him, but I do agree that he was worth a 6 out of 10, which is decent to good. Harry Maguire, they've given a 6. They've said a clumsy foul from the United skipper was almost punished with the resultant free kick, but he was steady after the break. I would agree with that. He was worth a 6. Harry Maguire, pretty steady throughout the game for me. Eric Bailey, they've given a 6. They've said a careless moment played United into trouble, and made some good interceptions later in the game. Almost set up a winner, but Cavani was ruled offside. Couple of things there. The careless moment that played United into trouble, I think they're talking about when Traore managed to dispossess him near the dead ball line and he pulled it back. That was one of the occasions when De Gea had to make an half-decent save. I think it was Ruben Neves got a shot in from the edge of the box. Almost set up a winner but Cavani was ruled offside. I think that's the one where he won the header from the corner and almost set up the winner. When you first read that, it almost sounds like it's a deliberate set-up, like you've tried to play somebody in or something, but all he did was have an header at goal. It was going that way, deflected into Cavani's path. I'm not being negative about that. He won the header, it was an attempt at goal, but I don't get why they've written he almost set up a winner. But yeah, definitely a solid game by Eric Bailey. Same as Maguire and Wan-Bissaka, I would say decent to good, which is a 6 for me. So 6 out of 10, fine. I always say just because people get the exact same number, it doesn't mean they played exactly the same. And Alex Telles has got a 6, and I would say, if anything, he was the nearest one to a 5 out of the back four. But I don't mind him having a 6 whatsoever. He tried to attack Wolves in the first half and was somewhat unfortunate to be subbed at half time. I think Adama Traore as an opponent was always going to be a tough ask for him to come up against Adama Traore. I don't disagree with a 6 out of 10. I thought he was okay. I thought he got a few crosses in the first half. A lot of people talk about him as an attacking fullback. Although he did get a couple of decent ones in, I thought a couple of them were poor as well. But he was okay. So decent to good for me, Alex Telles. Perfectly happy with a 6. I agree with the Evening News. I do disagree with a couple coming up, but so far so good. All agreed. Paul Pogba, they've given a 6 too. I would agree with that one as well. 6 out of 10. Steady in his defensive work, they've said, but didn't catch fire going forward, other than one decent shot which forced a save from Rui Patricio. Steady in his defensive work, yeah, I would agree with that. He was pretty disciplined in his defensive work. There's 2 types of discipline though. I would have liked him to have played not quite so many expansive passes. But overall, yeah, perfectly fine, decent game. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for Paul Pogba, no problem with that. Nemanja Matic, they've given a 7 too. They're not really raving about him, and they say quietly and effectively went about his job protecting United's defence. That's it, yet giving him a 7. They've given 3 7s out. Or 4 7s they've given out. I would say Matic was United's best player last night. I really thought so, by some way as well. Anybody who watches this show knows that I really study the game closely. Again, I don't just watch it live once. I've watched it again. I've studied it, and Matic, his passing was great. Forward passes, good passes into people's feet, good passes to get the fullbacks going down the flanks. Solid. 2 or 3 times dispossessed dispossessed Adama Traore. He almost bullied him a couple of times, and I just thought he was absolutely superb. Matic, really, I should be tempted to up him from a 7 to an 8, but I will just say he was well worth his 7, bordering on an 8, so definitely a 7. But I think it's a bit underwhelming what they've said about him. Quietly and effectively went about his job protecting United defence. There was a lot more to it than that, and I thought Matic was well worth his 7. Bruno, they've given a 7-2. I don't agree with that one. It's the first one that I've knocked or I've changed, so I'll knock Bruno down to a 6. Obviously, all the defenders all got a 6. I don't think Bruno pulled up any trees to make him worthwhile getting a higher mark than most of the other players. They've said he did his best to pull the strings. This is the Express. Did his best to pull the strings behind the front 3, but United can't afford to always rely so heavily on their star man. That's their words. Did his best to pull the strings behind the front 3. Sometimes you'd be better off not trying to pull the strings and just trying to move the ball around. When you move the ball around, you move the opposition around. So it's the Express's own words, really, that he did his best to pull the strings. In other words, he was trying to make things happen. Sometimes we over-try to make things happen, I think, and we need to simplify the game and just keep passing it around and pull them around. That's what a lot of the top teams do. They try and pull the opposition around by moving the ball around more quickly. So perfectly fine. No work rate, fantastic as ever, and a 6 out of 10 for me, which is decent to good. You know, but he wasn't more than decent to good, just as the defenders were all decent to good. So 6 out of 10 for Bruno for me. Mason, they've given a 6-2. Mason Greenwood, they've said a fine cross for Fernandes for United's best chance of the first half. That's a fact. It can't be denied. But it's just one moment in the game. But other than that, he struggled to have an impact on the game. Yeah, I would agree he struggles to have an impact on the game. He doesn't seem to get involved in the game enough for me, Mason, and he does enough decent stuff when he does get it, but he also got dispossessed a bit easily a couple of times. I would just about agree with his 6. He's one of the ones that would be nearer to a 5 than a 6, rather than 1 or 2 that I've mentioned might have been nearer to a 7. But Mason, I would settle for a 6. A decent game, I would say, by Mason. A 5 poor, so it'd be unfair to give him a 5. I would say just a decent game, nothing more. So a 6 out of 10 for Mason Greenwood, and I will agree with that. There's 2 coming up that I don't agree with in the Express. One needs marking, but both similar. One needs marking up, one needs marking down. Edison Cavani, they've given a 5-2. The striker was isolated and suffered from a lack of service as Wolves frustrated United. Had the ball in Bailey's in the net from Bailey's header, but was ruled offside. They're giving him a 5 and then just said the striker was isolated and suffered from a lack of service. Suffered from a lack of service. If you just look back 2 matches, you look to Bruno, did his best to pull the strings behind the front 3. So, you know, let's get this balanced up. He did his best to pull the strings. Cavani's obviously trying to find space. Is it Bruno's fault that he didn't pull the strings? Is it Cavani's fault? Is it Bruno's fault that Cavani wasn't available, or is it Cavani's fault that Bruno couldn't find him? Do you know what I mean? Why is Cavani only a 5? And then they've said the striker was isolated and suffered from a lack of service. Well, he's supposed to get his service from Bruno, and he's supposed to get his service from the wide players, Mason and Marcus. So I don't understand. I think he had a perfectly fine game. I'm so impressed with his work rate, by the way. The 2 or 3 times it breaks down with somebody out of position, one of the wide men, or maybe Bruno's too far forward, and I see him racing back to get the defensive shape right, to get us more solid. And I am really impressed about a centre forward coming to a new club and putting that kind of work in. I really am over the moon with Edison Cavani in that respect. Plus, we've already seen he can score goals. He come on and made the goal against Leicester the other day as well. Obviously, we're not talking about previous goals. We're not talking about generalisations either. We're talking about what happened in the one game. And in that one game, I thought his work rate was brilliant. And as they've quite rightly said, he did suffer from a lack of service. So I don't think he deserves to only get a 5. For me, I'd give him, he was perfectly decent when he got the ball. Obviously lost it a couple of times, nobody didn't. So there's no reason to give him only a 5. A 5 to me is poor. So I think decent to good, 6, Edison Cavani. And then, lo and behold, Edison Cavani 5, Marcus Rashford, one of the people who's supposed to be serving him, by the way, suffered from lack of service. Edison Cavani 5, Marcus Rashford 7. What's all that about? And even at that, underneath Marcus, they've said not at his electric best. Well, I wonder what mark they would have given him if he was at his electric best. Because 7 is very good to me, very good. Like I say, I've only given 1 7 out. I've given Matic a 7. Oh, and De Gea, I've agreed with De Gea as a 7. So Marcus 7, no, not for me. What does it say? Not at his electric best. His threat was snuffed out. So not at his best. His threat was snuffed out, and then give him a 7, and yet we've given Cavani a 5. His threat was snuffed out by a resolute Wolves defence for much of the game. Marcus's direct opponent. I've heard 2 different reports. I read that the lad he was making his debut as like the right wing back. I've read that he was 19, and then I heard the commentator say that he's 19 next month. So Marcus's direct opponent was an 18-year-old lad making his Premier League debut, and his threat was snuffed out. His threat was snuffed out, not at his electric best. Did pop up with a last gasp, and they've said this. Did pop up with a last gasp deflected winner. To me, I'm giving Marcus a 6. So they've given Cavani a 5 and Marcus a 7. I'm upping Cavani to a 6, and I'm downgrading Marcus from a 7 to a 6. And Marcus would be one of the 6s. To me, in that game, I don't think he was that good in many respects. But for getting the winner, I might have been tempted to give him a 5. How they give a 7 is beyond me, really. And I've watched the game back, I've studied it, and there's not enough happening for me. There really isn't. There's not enough good stuff happening. That's that on the starting 11. I only mark substitutes if they get at least half a game, and a substitution was made at half time. Luke Shaw for Telles at 45 minutes, and the Express have given Luke Shaw a 6. I wouldn't disagree with that, but as I've said with 2 or 3 of the others, it's a good 6 in Luke Shaw's case rather than only just a 6. I thought Luke Shaw certainly played well when he came on. A couple of little slack passes later on, but in general, solid. Traore couldn't get much change out of him whatsoever, so a 6 out of 10. I'd agree with that, but it was easily a 6. That's that on the ratings. I'm going to do a player in focus tomorrow on Rick the Red UK on Twitter. I'm going to put up Marcus Rashford, Edison Cavani, Nemanja Matic and Paul Pogba for people to vote on, and I will be whoever obviously gets the most votes in that poll will be the player in focus tomorrow, where I will explain why a player only got that mark, or maybe some people might think he should have got a higher mark or a lower mark. And I will also be putting some clips up of whichever player it is of his game on Twitter, so you can see 1 or 2 of the things that I'll be talking about. In the news, Spurs and Fulham game postponed due to a COVID outbreak in the Fulham camp. Getting a bit worrying this. It's happening a little bit too often. There's a bit of a rumour around, or there's maybe even a push from some places to have a 2-week break in the football. Very interested to hear Ollie's comments after the game against Wolves, where Ollie said it's I can't remember it word for word what he said, but I can give you the gist of it, so to speak. And he did say something along the lines of it's about the whole country, if you like, or it's about the whole population. It's not just about football, COVID. And he said, and I don't understand why or what difference it would make to the public in general if football was to stop for 2 weeks. So I do agree with Ollie on that. There's no fans in the stadiums. Obviously, because there's no fans in the stadiums, it means there's no fans travelling on public transport. There's no fans congregating in pubs or cafes or anything near the stadiums, as is the norm when we're in normal circumstances, so to speak. So I do not understand one little bit why football should be called to a halt, even for a couple of weeks. If it is called to a halt, I don't know whether it'll be taken on a vote, or whether Parliament might say you need to take a break, or whether the FA themselves will say they need to take a break. I don't know how that'll work, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there should be a break in football. I don't understand what difference it'll make to the general public if there's a 2-week break in the football. They should all be in their own bubbles. If you can go, I'm pretty certain the rules are, as they were during the first lockdown way back in March, that if you can work from home, you can work from home. But if you can't work from home, you can still go to work. I'm pretty sure that's the rules. So the footballers can't work from home, can they? That's the way I see it. Lots of people working places where they're working with at least as many people, and obviously the football being on the telly is something for the general public to look forward to as well. It's a bit of an outlet for them, isn't it? If if you're stuck at home all the time and you're not going to work, and you can't go anywhere else to entertain yourself. So I just think the football shouldn't be stopped, and I hope it isn't. And I hope that these clubs, Fulham have had an outbreak now, Newcastle have had an outbreak, Manchester City have had an outbreak. I think that we might fall behind enough with fixtures just by the odd outbreak here and there. We've already got Newcastle are a game behind, City are a couple of games behind, Fulham and Spurs are now a couple of games behind. Earlier in the season, not because of COVID, but just because they were coming back from the European Cup and the Europa League. Manchester City didn't start on the first day. Manchester United didn't start on the first day, which also meant Burnley didn't and Villa didn't. So there's already an imbalance in the Premier League fixtures. There's a few teams played 2 games less than others, or 1 game less than others. And I just think if there's going to be the odd outbreak, which is going to mean another postponement, there's going to be a few teams falling behind anyway. I don't really think it's a good idea to say for carte blanche for 2 weeks, stop it, then everybody's they're playing twice a week, everybody's going to be at least 3 fixtures behind, and then straight after that, another team might, and plus you've got the weather at this time of the year. Sometimes games are postponed because of the weather, so I just think it could be suicidal, so to speak. That might not be a good word, but it could be suicidal, just actually having a 2-week break, and then these other games might get postponed after that as well, whether it's for COVID or whether it's through the weather. So no, not for me, having a 2-week break. I don't see the point in it. United have got Villa Friday night, another massive 3 points. Got to get the 3 points. Just got to stay in touch, got to stay on Liverpool's coattails up until we play them. We play them, that'll be the first league game. If there isn't a break, that game might be off. If they have a break, I think it'd overlap that game. But if they don't have a break, our first league game, after the cup ties, we've got City if it goes ahead, then we've got Watford in the FA Cup if it goes ahead, then it's Liverpool. We need to be going to that game no more than 5 points behind them with a game in hand on them. So that's that. If you've enjoyed that show, please subscribe. Please tell all your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anybody. Keep stum.